you ferment pumpkin pie enough to make a cider?
Is it good?
It's just kind of weird.
Does it taste like pumpkin pie?
I don't get the pie taste. I get more just a little hint of pumpkin.
Oh,
So it was like they made apple cider and
threw in a pumpkin.
yeah, put in like the pumpkin spice,
Oh,
whatever.
and all the white girls came running.
Welcome to the Greatest Lists podcast, a show about music and lists. This season, your hosts Jason and Eric are counting down the top 25 guitar solos of the 80s and the top 25 guitar solos of the 90s. Think your favorite made the list? Tune in and find out. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to Greatest Lists, a music and talk podcast featuring lists of the greatest songs of all time. I am Eric, your host for this episode, and joining me, as always, is my co-host Jason. What's going on, Jason?
Hey, proud to be an American, man. America.
We are continuing our season 2 list of our favorite guitar solos of all time, and we're currently counting down the top 25 of the 80s. But before we continue, this episode is sponsored by HalloweenCostumes.com, which features the largest online selection of Halloween costumes ever. Use our promo link in the show notes to save 15% on your entire order. Just click over and the savings are automatically added to your cart. But you got to do it before October 31st. So get your orders in ASAP.
Get those costumes, people.
This episode, we are talking about the number 17 song in our countdown. From the album Midnight Madness, this is You Can Still Rockin' America from Night Ranger.
Behind the music.
Hailing from San Francisco, California, Night Ranger formed in 1979 with bass player Jack Blades, drummer Kelly Keagy, and guitarist Brad Gillis, who were all members of the band Rubicon before they formed Night Ranger. They started out under the name Stereo and added keyboardist Alan Fitzgerald, who soon recommended adding a second guitarist by the name of Jeff Watson. A year after that, they changed their name to Ranger. A year after that, after being signed in 82, the band changed its name to Night Ranger after country band The Rangers claimed trademark infringement. By this point, they had recorded their first album, Dawn Patrol, for Boardwalk Records and had done opening stints for ZZ Top and Ozzy Osbourne. After Boardwalk folded, producer Bruce Bird secured Night Ranger with a deal on MCA Records in 1983, and they produced 13 albums over their 40-year career.
Wow.
Guitarist Brad Gillis was born in 1956 in Honolulu, Hawaii. He received his first guitar at 8 years old and started his first band at 10.
Wow.
Gosh. Fresh out of high school at 18, Brad honed his craft in nightclubs around the San Francisco Bay Area before joining Rubicon and Night Ranger. During the recording of Night Ranger's first album, Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne brought Gillis in to replace Randy Rhoads after his untimely death. Osbourne, who was drinking heavily at the time, still trying to come to terms with the loss of Rhoads, took his frustrations out on Gillis and treated him very poorly. As a result, Gillis left Osbourne's band after completing the 1982 Diary of a Madman tour and returned to Night Ranger. However, you can hear Brad Gillis playing on Osbourne's 1982 Speak of the Devil live album, and you can see him playing on the DVD of the same title. Aside from playing on every Night Ranger album, he's also had 2 solo albums of his own. Guitarist Jeff Watson was born in 1956 in Sacramento, California. His first instrument was a Stella 4-string baritone ukulele when he was 5 years old. Then a Stella, exactly, then a Stella small body 6-string when he was 6 years old, and then a Yamaha 12-string guitar when he was 8. And soon after, he got an electric guitar. Before joining Night Ranger, he played in several bands around the San Francisco area. And during his time with Night Ranger, he developed his signature 8-finger tapping technique. He also briefly played in the supergroup Mother's Army with vocalist Jolyn Turner, bassist Bob Daisley, and drummer Carmen Appice. He also has 2 solo albums of his own. Okay. He played in Night Ranger from 1982 till 2007, when he was dismissed from the band for undisclosed reasons. And trust me, I've been trying to find those undisclosed reasons and couldn't find them anywhere. Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, sometimes it happens that way.
Sometimes it happens. As far as the song goes, the band was on tour with Sammy Hagar in '83. Singer Jack Blades bought several music magazines in town on his day off, many of which proclaimed, quote-unquote, rock is dead in favor of new wave artists like Thompson Twins or The Cure. Blades refused to believe it, as his band and Sammy Hagar had played so many concerts on that tour with thousands of screaming fans who seemed to think rock and roll was still very much alive. He came up with a chorus first and then wrote some verses based on what fans would tell him about the lengths they would go to attend rock concerts. Blades said, so I just took what the fans were telling me and I wrote that as a commentary on what I was seeing out there when everybody was saying rock was dead.
Interesting.
Let's get personal.
I first heard Night Ranger and this song early in '84 when I started seeing the video on MTV and other places. And the first time I saw the video is when I fell in love with the guitar. And I don't know if I probably mentioned on one of our episodes somewhere that I have 3 big influences on me as far as guitar playing. One of them is Brad Gillis. And for the life of me, I cannot tell you why I chose, out of these 2 guys, I don't know why I chose Brad Gillis over Jeff Watson. I just did. It might be because of the Ozzy album, because I had heard the Ozzy album and knew that he was playing on there as well. That, and soon after this song was out, Sister Christian came out too, and they were in heavy rotation on MTV. And later in '84, MTV featured them on their Saturday Night Concert series, and that sealed the deal for me as far as wanting to play guitar. One funny story I have about this album, I think I may have already told this, I can't remember, but in the summer of '84, I bought this album. And I bought Duran Duran's Seven and the Ragged Tiger one day when we were at the mall. We had gone on family vacation and had gone to the mall with some family friends. And I walked into the music store and bought those two albums. This one, Midnight Madness, and Seven and the Ragged Tiger. And I walked back out to where my dad was sitting in the mall concourse, and he was like, "What do you got there?" And I showed him. And
oh no.
He walked me right back into the record store, and I had to return them.
Oh gosh!
And because it was rock and roll, and he wasn't going to let me buy that. And I just remember the look on the guy's face that was behind the counter, just looking like he just, "Did you just buy these?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was,
oh man!
I could just see on his face like, "What? What?" And I just remember my dad going, "Just give him his money back."
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can still rock in America, just not in the Vardaman household.
Just not the Vardaman household, unless you tape all of your music off from friends and hide it in your bedroom.
So while other people hid like Playboys under their mattress, you were just stashing blank tapes.
I had cassette tapes everywhere in my bedroom.
Oh man.
Sure enough. So yeah, that's a little bit of my history. I've seen these guys 7 times in concert.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm a fairly huge fan of Night Ranger. What about you? When did you start listening to Night Ranger, or have you?
Yeah, I don't want to bust the bubble here because I know this is one of your favorite bands. I don't have a lot of experience with Night Ranger beyond the singles that were released on the radio, and it was just earlier this year I went on a kick and I listened to like the first couple albums of Night Ranger and some other bands like Survivor and 38 Special. I'm trying to think who else I grouped in there, but there's just some bands that I think Night Ranger, because Sister Christian was a huge hit.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they were almost like the extreme of the early 80s where, you had these huge hits like No More Than Words and Wholehearted. That's nothing like the rest of the songs on the album.
Oh, right.
And the ballads that just are monster hits, and you go to play it and you're like, wow, now this song here, is not what I was expecting. But
Right.
yeah, no, I've heard this one in particular over the years on the radio. I just have never really gone back and explored their catalog beyond like singles and stuff. I don't know if I ever had a greatest hits with them. I don't think I did, but yeah, just not one I've really had a lot of experience with.
Yeah, and they're the kind of band that, and I talked about this several times during my album countdown, that they should have been. I mean, for as much success as they had on this album with 3 singles they had, and then the next album they had a couple of singles. And I watched an interview with the drummer Kelly Keagy, and he mentions the fact that after Sister Christian blew up, that's all the record company wanted from them. And so the next album, they wanted multiple songs like that, and they were releasing them, and then every album after that, we don't hear the Sister Christian on this album. We don't hear and they just kind of got, by the record company, got pigeonholed into that. And then after that next album, they just didn't have a whole lot more success for whatever reason. And they should have been huge and with every album, and it just didn't happen that way. So
yeah,
a lot of people don't have experience with them beyond either their singles or Sister Christian. I mean, everybody knows that song.
Yeah, oh yeah, everybody knows it. Don't Tell Me You Love Me.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty big one that I've heard over the years, and yeah, it's crazy how one song can just overshadow you, or just not be at the core, I guess, of what really their music is, at least from what I've listened to as well.
Yeah,
and you just get pigeonholed into that. And I can see that happening, and why they just never really made it to that next level.
right, exactly.
The breakdown.
So the solo is broken up into 2 parts, obviously, because there's 2 guitar players. Brad Gillis plays the intro to the solo and the first half of the solo. And then Jeff Watson plays the second half and the outro of the solo. As far as Brad Gillis goes, you can hear his use of the whammy bar. He's
all about the whammy.
Yes, he loves that thing. And you can also hear it at the beginning of the song. That's what you hear when the song starts. Is Brad Gillis. But then when Jeff Watson plays, you can hear his 8-finger tapping technique.
Oh yeah.
And they're both just, I mean, at this point in their careers, they were both just ridiculously good guitar players that were, they were just, a couple of years after this, there's a lot of people doing the 8-finger thing, where you're not actually tapping with all 8 fingers at one time, but they're all active at the same time. I mean, he's got them all over the neck. And later on, there's a lot of guys that do that. But when he was doing it, nobody was doing it. Not even Eddie. Eddie doesn't do that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I noticed that watching the music video.
Yeah.
Like his technique is like slower almost when in motion compared to like Eddie, who's like all up and down the neck with the tapping.
Yeah, he considered it like playing the piano on the neck. Is one way he described it one time. He used to have, I think I mentioned during the Richard Marx episode that Steve Lukather had a Starlicks video, like an instructional video. So did Jeff Watson, and I remember watching him trying to demonstrate and teach how to do the 8-finger thing, and it's just like, I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. There's no way I can do that. You're just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he was doing it, nobody was doing it. And it was just people were like, oh my God, that's amazing. But yeah, and Brad Gillis, I mean, he is the master of using the whammy. I mean, he can play without the whammy bar. I mean, he's fast and he's got great technique and has some great licks. But when he uses a whammy bar, nobody else plays the whammy bar like that. I mean, the way he makes it do certain things that he does with it, it was unique at the time, and still when everybody finally started playing that way, nobody did it as well as he did. So I've always thought that these two were a little bit ahead of the curve as far as the way they played, because on the other hand, you had all these metal bands that were coming out, and they could play, maybe play fast, but they were one-trick ponies, and these guys were doing more things on the guitar than some of the metal bands were out at the time, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, because like I went out to Spotify to listen to the song, and I'm going through the solo a couple of times. I'm like, this is one talented dude. If he's doing everything in both, I didn't realize it was two different guitar players.
Yeah.
And then I went out and watched the music video, and it gives you a new appreciation for just what they're doing, because you can see everything, in both solos or both parts of the solo in the music video. And the dude is just, he has his hand on the whammy bar. Some guitarists will use it for certain parts, and you see him reach down and grab the thing and use it, where he has the hold of the thing the whole time.
Yeah.
And you're hearing all these crazy sounds that are coming out of the guitar with just the whammy. And then you get to all the tapping too. And watching the tapping, I'm just kind of mesmerized with it, because I had never seen the tapping used in such a slow manner before, and still get what sounds like a faster pattern that he's doing.
Yeah.
So just very unique in the fact that you've got two guitarists, two that are doing like their own thing separately, and yet still sound awesome together.
Yeah.
I think that's there's other guitarists or other bands out there probably that had two that could swap back and forth like that for a solo, but I don't know about this level.
Very few bands that had two guitarists had two lead guitarists. They usually had a rhythm player who might pull off a lead every once in a while, and then they had the lead guitarist. Like you think bands like Rat. Rat had a lead guitarist in Warren DeMartini, and then they also had Robin Crosby, who played
and Def
rhythm.
Leppard too.
Def Leppard, right? Exactly. And so to have two guys that were lead guitar players was different than anybody else.
Yeah,
and they've had, so after Jeff Watson left, they've had two other guys in the band as a second guitar player, and I've seen them live with both guys, and even though those guys are incredible guitar players, neither one of them can completely pull off this part of the solo. This part of the solo, because they don't play the 8-finger technique. They just tap it really quick, and so it sounds close, but it isn't the same. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's how unique that technique is to him, and wasn't widespread at all.
Yeah.
But one last story before we. I'm just railing on because it's my favorite band, but
sure.
story.
No, go ahead.
I saw them 7 or 8 years ago here in town. We had a festival here in town called Streets Gone Wild. It was a hair band festival, and they were the headliner on Friday night. And I was literally like up against the fence at the stage in front of Brad Gillis the entire time. If I can get in to see them, that's where I stand every time, is right in front of Brad Gillis. And so I'm just watching him and just soaking it all in. And he plays, I don't remember what song it was, but he's playing a solo. And when he gets done, as he's bending the note of the string for that final note, the string breaks, and he just yanks the string off, and he looks at like three of us right in the front of the stage. He just looked at me and he just mouthed to us, "I effing love my job." He takes his guitar off and throws it at his roadie, and you throw him another one. He just keeps playing. I'm like, God, that is a guitar hero right there.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say that you were like fighting over the broken string, to take it with you. It's on my wall. I got it mounted on the wall.
I wear it as a necklace.
Yeah, it's my necklace.
So You Can Still Rock in America comes in at number 17 on our countdown. And I've got, much like the Vito Bratta episode, I could probably give you 9 or 10 bonus songs for this guy, but I'll give you 3. From the same album, there's a song called Touch of Madness. The solo is good, but the whole, the riff that he plays for this song, this used to be my ringtone on my phone. So that'll be the first. That'll be the first bonus song. The second bonus song is from their album "Man in Motion," which is criminally underplayed by anybody, and nobody plays this album. It's just so good. It's a song called "Here She Comes Again," and then the third bonus song is from their album "Big Life," and it's more of a ballad, but the solo is just smoking hot. It's a song called "Hearts Away." So if you have Spotify Premium, which we recommend, stay tuned because you're going to hear all three of those songs in their entirety after I get through talking. Free Spotify users, you're going to get 30 seconds of those songs and then just be pissed off because you can't hear the whole thing. But outside of Spotify, you're not hearing anything but background music and our voices droning on. So we invite you to visit the Song Whip links in the show notes that will connect you to those songs in your favorite music app. If you want to support us and get your name in the show notes, click over to patreon.com/The Retro Network, which is our home base. Or you can find us on Twix. If you look for us at Greatest Lists. You can also find us on YouTube at Greatest Lists or on our website, greatestlistspodcast.com. Jason will be back in control for our number 16 song on our next episode.
That band was actually mentioned in this episode earlier.
Oh, that's right. That's true. I didn't think about that. Thanks for listening to The Greatest Lists, and we look forward to continuing our countdown next time.
You've been listening to The Greatest Lists.